Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming out on this rainy day. So this morning, when I was at the Veterans Coffee House, I had my duck boots on, so I was joking with the veterans, I hope that everybody has their duck boots on. Well, I don't have my duck boots on tonight, but they're in my office, so thank you for coming out in this rainy, dreary weather, especially for DOT traveling from Hartford, some of you I know, so I appreciate everybody being here. I'd just like to take a minute and I'd like to thank Russell Gray and Link, our first selectman and selectman from Sterling, for being here with us. My selectman, Ginny Sanpetro, my partner in crime, who is pretty much, we work really good together. Mary Ann Chinati, who is our town planner, our economic developer, who is another partner in crime that her and I work very close together and have quite a few projects going. So, again, thank you. I'm grateful to the state that they have chosen to partner with us and to invest in the town of Plainfield and Sterling in this project. So the benefits that I see for Plainfield, and Russell's going to come up and have a few words to say also, is being a family, having a family, or even visitors, it's so beneficial to our town to be able to have this and have it completed. The other thing that I love why it's so beneficial to us is it's going to help bring business, but not only that, it's going to support our local business that's here. So tonight, please think of all the things that could change just by having this trail finished, completed, and connected so that we actually can take the trail out to Rhode Island. And the other thing I just want to say, because I know that some people have already said, made the comment about, oh great, this is where our tax dollars are going to, $2.6 million. Well, just remember this, if these tax dollars are not spent in our town, they're going to go to another town and be spent. So just look at it that way, that I feel like our tax dollars are being spent wisely for our town and to invest in our town. So I ask that you just think about that tonight when you have your questions, okay? So right now what I would like to do is introduce Jim Kulpa. Well, first, I'm sorry, Jim. Russell, I know you wanted to come up and say a few words, so I'm going to have you come up, Russ, and say a few words, and then we'll introduce you, Jim, okay? Thank you, Russ.
Thank you, Kathy. As I look around here, I don't see too many people from Sterling. Well, you do have a few. I hope it's the weather that gets the weather, not lack of interest. We're looking forward to having this trail finished. Used to be, I can remember not too many years ago, when a lot of people walked that trail, especially the fatter ladies in town, for exercise.
You're lucky that
Yes, I
you're
can say
resident. Yes.
Anyway, hopefully once it's finished, completed, people will start to use that trail. It gets people off the highways and just makes it safer. Thank you, Kathy.
So as introduced earlier, my name is Jim Kulpa. I'm the project manager for this project. So we're here tonight for State Project 108-189, rehabilitation of Moosup Valley State Park Trail. It's a design project now because the trail is in a state that DEP's routine maintenance forces is kind of beyond their capabilities, and we have to get the help of a contractor to help us, rehabilitate the trail as well as bring it back to its former self, and also improve it in certain areas. I'm going to try and work next slide. So tonight, as part of the design process, if I can hear me? No. Oh, sorry. So as part of the design process, we bring the project to about a 30% design level, and then we hold a public information meeting just as this. The agenda for the meeting is generally an introduction period, so I'm going to take care of that. Introduce you to the project, the design team, the different partners that we're working with for the project, as well as give you an idea of how this project fits into the East Coast Greenway, which goes from Florida to Maine, as well as how it relates to the East Coast Greenway just in Connecticut. At the end of the meeting, we'll have a question and comment period. Residents can come forward to the microphone and publicly submit comments. We just ask that give each other enough time to everybody be heard and so forth. If you do not want to submit, submit comments, but voice your comments tonight. We have a form that's in the meeting handout. So I think it's the second to last page. You can do a written comment, and you can mail that to Hugh, Hayward, who's here tonight as well. And his email address as well as his phone number is on there too. So you can submit comments if you don't want to do that tonight. And also, if you go home and think of something, you've got up till the end of February to send in comments as well. After the meeting, we're going to have a period where you can, just like in the beginning, we were here talking to you about the different aspects of the trail. What's it look like next to my property and so forth. We can for sure do that after the meeting as well. I'm an engineer. Our design team are a bunch of engineers and planners as well, and we can go through it. We got a landscape architect too, so not to leave anybody out. That's it. So for the project team, project's being overseen by Mr. Hugh Hayward of the Connecticut Department of Transportation, and to assist us with rights-of-way, Mr. Dennis McDonald. So any easements that are necessary for the project will be going through him. Any design-related issues will be going through Hugh. Our designer, Mr. Dominick Celtruda, is here from PL Companies, and myself, I work for VHB, and I'm an extension of the department. So the department, for their trail program, hires us to oversee the aspects of it and the different projects that are being built out through that effort. Tonight, too, I'd like to introduce some people from DEP. Lori Giannotti, we work closely with. I don't believe she's here tonight, but we have Mr. Scott Dolly. He's one of the parks supervisors, so he's very intimate with the Moosup Valley State Park Trail, its history, as well as the general day-to-day conditions of it. Again, we heard from Mrs. Kathy Pedrich and Mr. Russell Gray. So we've been working with them closely. As the design progresses, we're going to be working with them too. And if you have any concerns, you can also use them as a conduit to get your concern to us. Just some housekeeping. We do have a sign-in sheet. It was up on the table there. It's a voluntary sign-in sheet. So the different information you provided, one of the things that you provided an email address, you're going to be getting an email from the Department of Transportation for a survey, really to see how we did tonight, how we can improve public information meetings and so forth. So it's kind of a way to improve the public information outreach process. And also in the meeting handout, we do have a contact, actually a comment form I mentioned earlier. That gets mailed to Hugh. And we also have at the very back a demographic survey questionnaire. This is voluntary as well. This is kind of a new initiative that ConnDOT is undertaking, basically for civil rights. The Department of Transportation operates all its programs and services without discrimination in regard to race, color, or national origin in accordance with Title VI of the Federal Civil Rights Act. We have a flyer in the back of the room with more information on that, and then how the department is making every effort to make their projects open and non-discriminatory to anybody. And we also have that demographic survey that's at the very back of the handout. And then we ask that if you're going to fill it out, you can fill it out, fold it up. It's doesn't have any place for your name, so it's, what's the word? Anonymous, sorry. A little nervous, but you can fold it and put it in the back of the room. Mark Jordan is back there. He's got a box that you can drop it in. A little history about the East Coast Greenway. Again, from Key West, Florida. So actually, when it's complete, you can go to Moosup Center and ride your bike or walk down to Key West, or you can go to Cali Bay. So that's the goal. It's about 30% or 32% complete at this point. Each state is making an effort to build out their segments of the East Coast Greenway. It's actually very active and a pretty neat effort too. There's actually people that are going end to end with it. And you can follow their stories. 15 states, 450 communities, and Sterling and Plainfield are one of those two of those 450 communities. In Connecticut, we're progressively building it out. So it's about 200 miles through the state, and this project's about 6 of those. And we're just about halfway finished with the entire project. And this will actually dovetail to the state of Rhode Island's efforts to build out the trestle trail. And that, when it's completed, they're actually working on a project now that's in construction to rehabilitate 2 bridges and a culvert just over the state line. And that'll be about 30 miles complete from Moosup Center. Well, once it's complete with our project, it'll be about 30 miles from Moosup Center out to Cranston. And then a 60-mile day to come back. But, I think that's about it for me. I'd like to introduce Mr. Dominick Celtruda. He's from DL Companies, and they're the company that's actually designing the project for the department. And they'll be able to go into the details about all the different aspects of the design that's been developed today.
Thank you, Jim. Again, Dominick Celtruda, DL Companies, landscape architect, involved in the design. You got a brief overview of the East Coast Greenway. Something you should realize is the East Coast Greenway started to be visioned back in 1991. But the history of this trail predates that by a little bit. In the 60s, it was a rail service. It was abandoned, after which DOT took ownership of it. That ownership in the state of Connecticut was the department. Stewardship was established in 1987 with Connecticut DEP. I think it was DEP back then. And then in 1988-89, they built the Moosup Valley State Park Trail. So if you think about that and line up with the East Coast Greenway, the department has been a pioneer a little bit in developing these trails. They've been dedicated all over the state, and they're looking for these gap closure type projects to rehabilitate and reestablish that link so there's a spine that runs through the state of Connecticut and it can be tied into New York and Rhode Island proper. Purpose and need is pretty simple. We want to restore the trail for the public good, plain and simple. How do we want to do that? We want to expand that network in the East Coast Greenway. We want that connection to Rhode Island. You can see it with the airline trail. You can see it with the Farmington Canal Trail and other parts of the state. These get a lot of heavy use. Times are changing. When you ride a bike, you used to ride in your neighborhood. A lot of people are more comfortable riding it on a trail nowadays. Working with bicyclists and pedestrians alike, elderly, and the small children and the common adult. Why we're here tonight, we mentioned it during our impromptu time earlier. We're here to show you we're at 30%. We're not even 50% there yet. We put ideas on paper, but we don't live here. We want input from the residents. We want input from the public. We want to listen, and we want to understand, what are the needs, what are the wants? Can we work? Can we take that back, and can we grind it together, and can we make that possible? The proposed work is very simple. It's rehabilitation of an existing state park trail system. We're going to repair the stone dust surfaces that are out there. Someone had mentioned earlier, are you going to rip up the blacktop that's already there? No, we're not. We're going to rehabilitate some of that blacktop or asphalt that's out there as well. We're going to have 8 to 10 foot typical width. We'll get into that in a little while on how that works. We're going to improve vegetation, restore disturbed areas, and pretty much rehabilitate that trail and clean and maintain. We know that there's water out there. There's some culverts that are clogged. We're going to take care of that kind of stuff. We're going to do safety improvements that weren't done during the original construction. We're going to provide fencing. We're going to do a lot of work at intersections. We're going to show that tonight. We're going to put wayfinding signage in and operational signage along the trail. We're going to provide different types of gate systems. We've learned a lot in the last 20 years when it comes to trails, not just us, but nationwide, of what works and what doesn't work on multimodal trail systems. We're going to implement some of that stuff into the trail system in Plainfield and Sterling. We're going to install crosswalks at the intersections. We're going to make safer view sheds and all around at the bridges as well. We want to do some work. So what is the Moosup Valley Trail? There's some pictures on the side. You can see it up there. At the left-hand side, this is kind of like a Google Earth image. Everyone, I think, is aware of it, kind of plan view. On the left-hand side is Moosup. On the right-hand side is Sterling and the Connecticut-Rhode Island border. We're going to start right down near Moosup Center, near the Dunkin' Donuts shop. We cross over a bridge. Our project starts at River Street. We meander through some really, really cool areas. We cross over into Sterling. We access some Stone Culvert Bridge, some existing other bridges in those areas. We get into Main Street. We keep meandering through there. We get over near Providence Road, and I call them the 14s, 14A. You guys have Sterling Road, the other common names for them, and we make it over to the Rhode Island line. We're going to do that tonight. Sit back. It's only about 3.5 hours long. We'll be good. I'm just kidding. I've been under a time. I got to get out of here quick, so we're gonna move through it quickly. I want to make sure that you guys understand what's coming. So first, what we have out there. Anyone who's traversed the trail, I am a big fat guy. I have traversed the trail 2 times. I'm not lying, 2 times. But I've done the airline. I've done the Farmington Canal. I try to get out once a month and at least walk, hike, bike, do something outside with my kids. All right. There's a movement afoot. We know about child obesity. We also understand that we want, the state of Connecticut is committed to healthy, active outdoor lifestyle. This is one of these items that they can prove it with. The existing trail, upper left-hand side, is one of the paved areas. There's some cracks. Bottom left is the only graffiti I can actually show in a public presentation. There's some interesting things out there. We're going to cover that up. We're going to clean it up. Top right, we've got some areas where we've got migration onto bituminous, not allowed to use bituminous, asphalt trail, sorry, caught myself. If it's a perfect presentation, it's not genuine. Bottom right, we've got some mud, and we've got some areas of ponding. Upper left looks pretty good, actually. Compacted, a little sandy. Top right, you've got some areas where, we've got overgrowth. It gets a little tight, a little scary looking, kind of. Bottom left, that is a lake. That's water. That's improper drainage. It's not scary. It's just something that has to be addressed. And the right looks okay, maybe a little bit wider. So what are we talking about? Before you take in this slide, the top is an actual trail, generic trail slide. The bottom is what we call a typical section. Take your eyes off the screen and look at this table. If the tabletop is the surface of the trail and you cut down through it, now you can see the bottom underneath. That's what you're looking at with the section. It's something that wasn't reestablished or established very good the first time out. We want to improve that. We want a steady, strong base. Anybody who builds something knows you have to have a strong base in order for everything above it to survive and to not move around a lot. And that's what we're doing. There's people sitting on the right-hand side of this room and people sitting on the left-hand side of the room. Big gap in the middle right now. That gap is approximately the width of what we're proposing the trail to be, about 10 feet wide. Okay, we specifically did that tonight to give you an idea. That's the width of the trail. There are shoulders on either side of that. Shoulders are 2 feet wide. All right, those shoulders will be grass, they could be gravel. Up on the top image that you see is the trail, that light beige color that the gentleman is riding on. I picked this color, this picture because on either side they've mulched what's called a shoulder. There's a 2-foot shoulder on either side of that. It gives you a little sense of openness. When we develop this trail, it's going to be, we're looking for 8 to 10 feet. We're looking for 10 feet minimum. There are some areas where we have constraints. It's a rail line. It goes through some really rocky areas. All right. Contrary to popular belief, Connecticut has stone, a lot of it. And we're not going to blast stone. So it heightens the aesthetic appearance as we move through these areas. And it makes for a nice experience, but we'll have some smaller areas, about 8 feet. What we're gonna do is we're gonna clear out to about 16-foot width in vegetation. You'll have that buffer, ground vegetation on the sides. But we're also gonna go 10 feet high. That's gonna be a box. That's gonna be clear, so when you're riding this or walking this, you've got clear sight lines as you move down through this trail system. Some of the representative treatments that are gonna happen, these are representative, these are not set in stone, these are some ideas that we're playing around with, some things that have happened on other trails that we know. Top left is the actual bridge in Moosup. It's got a single bollard, we're not touching that. That makes sense. We want it to be accessible, so we need a 4-foot wide opening, minimum, so we can be accessible. Okay? We're not gonna do anything with that, but we're gonna apply that application to some other areas. We have to design this to a certain standard, and we used a national standard to do that. And it tells us certain items we have to do. Certain widths, and if we don't have certain widths, you have to put a bollard in, we have to put a sign in, stop, walk your bike across the bridge, things along those lines. The bottom, the two right-hand pictures, we're gonna have some fencing, some bollards and some boulders. Bottom left, you all came in here tonight. The handicap spots, they have those little rumbly things. They're plastic. They're called truncated domes. I'm not supposed to use technical, but I'm gonna. Or they're called a couple of other things. We're gonna be installing those at every intersection. They may not be yellow, they could be red. I think they're probably gonna be yellow, and we're gonna be doing some sort of bollard system at every intersection too as well. We're taking everything that's out there, out. The barways, the existing bollards, we're gonna unify the look all the way down, and we're gonna put in some bollards that are keyed, that we can get emergency personnel, security personnel, maintenance personnel out, in and out of there in a lot more efficient fashion. The top left is the airline trail that you heard us talking about. That can be an image on this trail system when we're done. There are areas like that. On the right, we've got a couple of areas that we've devoted for benching. Not a lot, because we're doing a lot with that base that we're going to talk about. I'm going to talk about a lot more as we move forward. And then we're going to do some signage. It'd be nice to know if you're in Plainfield or Sterling, I think, with one sign. And we got to do something to represent at the town line. I'm sorry, at the state line. Correct. Thank you for correcting me. Perfect. We got to do something. We want to get there first. We want to put our gold spike in the ground before we're out. Again, we're going to walk it right now, okay? We're not going to walk a lot of the vast pieces in between. There's some areas that you can ride your bike and you can go for a quarter mile, half a mile, mile and a half, but we're going to walk the intersections because that's where you guys are going to see the biggest bang. You're going to see this. The most money is going to be spent where you don't see it. Talk about that base, establishing that base, making it nice and firm, making it an accessible grade level. So we're going to start on the left, and we're going to work our way through Plainfield for the Plainfield people. Then I'll tell you when we get to Sterling, so the Plainfield people can kind of nod off a little bit, and then we'll go to Sterling, and we can walk through Sterling, and we'll get all the way to Rhode Island. And if there's Rhode Island people here, I'm not really going to explain much on Rhode Island, but thank you for showing up. So this is River Street. To orient yourself at the top of the page, here's that bridge. The donut shop's over here. I was really upset when I went to Dunkin', just an aside. And you've got a paved portion. We're not doing much here. At River Street, we're going to install that sign, that crosswalk and signage we talked about. It's going to be signage on River Street to alert vehicles, but it's also going to be signage on the trail. Just because we don't put a trail in, you're fine. Just because we put the trail in doesn't mean that people on the trail have the right of way. Okay? So we're going to have some signage there. We're also going to be installing a bollard here. We're not going to do one over here. If you look down here, that's looking towards the bridge. It's okay. If someone does drive down there, they're going to hit the bollard before they hit the bridge, so you don't have to worry about that. The other side, you have the barway. That's coming down. We're going to have a bollard on that side. Now, this piece is paved. It's going to be upgraded in terms of covering up the graffiti, sweeping out the area. When we get to Barber Hill Road, it goes over an area, it comes down. You're going to see something. And just watch the little red dot if you can. I hope everyone can see it. The rail trail goes like this. When the rail bed was here, we're putting kind of a hiccup in it for a reason. We want to slow pedestrians down, but we also want to cut down the length of the crossing. Up on the airline trail, there's some wide areas you have to cross sometimes. So we have some wide areas here, but we're trying to maximize that slow the pedestrians and bicyclists down, provide a good, safe crossing at a short distance for the crosswalk, but also improve the sight lines along Barber Hill Road. So pedestrian or bicyclist can see driver, driver can see pedestrian or bicyclist when they come to that. Again, you'll have signage there, both on the trail, and you'll have signage on the road as well. Brunswick. Now, we all know this bridge is out over here, and if you don't, this bridge is out over here. but it is a street. Same thing. We're going to still provide the crosswalk. We're going to install what we call access control bollards again. We're doing this bollard thing. And we're going to also provide the signage. It doesn't mean that that bridge won't come back in later on. Maybe it becomes a spur trail later on sponsored by the county. We don't know. But we treat it that someone can come down Brunswick, turn around, come back. We want them to be able to see. We want good visibility both for pedestrian, bicyclist, and automobile. Now from this Brunswick intersection, I'm going to advance the slide to the Route 14 overpass. We're paving that. We're paving that section. We're doing that for a couple of reasons. I'll explain that lower slide in a minute. We need good access to that Route 14 bridge for routine maintenance and routine repairs of that overpass. We go under that with our trail. We want that to be nice and clean. We're going to raise that up a little bit. That's also an area where you can see we have a serious erosion problem. We're going to be putting in very big rock, up to 2 to 2.5 feet deep. They're going to cut that slope back, install that rock. That shows this big, giant area over here. So they're going to alleviate that. So none of that's going to move down. It's not going to be able to be moved. It's going to be just a big solid mass. It gets locked in there. And then a nice paved path will come through here. Right past this, very close to this site, was that first picture we saw with the water. We're going to raise up. We're going to have some swelling going on there, clean up that water. We're going to make that really nice to traverse through that zone. Stone Culvert. Everyone in Plainfield, we're in Sterling now. We've ridden our bike through this area. Everyone in Sterling, pay attention. This is the first bridge we go over. The Stone Culvert's in the dead middle. It's like a kind of a tributary of the Moosup in there. This is a beautiful picture of it from off the trail. We don't really promote off trail, but one of us snuck down there. The two gentlemen in this picture are actually standing on top of it. What we're doing here is we're going to install those bollards. We're going to install a fence. So it's safety, so someone doesn't ride their bike right off the Stone Culvert. Pretty simple. We call on the next one the rail trestle bridge that you come to. This is cool, but we know why this is here. If anyone from Sterling, they're well aware of what's going on here. We are taking those out. We're going to do a different bollard system. We're going to repair the deck on that bridge. We're going to repair the bridge rails, and we're going to do approach fencing that breaks way back. That's the plan for that area. It's going to improve the flow of circulation through that area. And obviously, we've got some accessibility issues in there that we have to address in order to do the project. We get to Main Street. Again, you see a hiccup or a jog in the trail. The trail used to go straight. We're bringing it over for safety. We're extending the Main Street sidewalks up to the trail. And we're providing a small park over here. That's our first bench option area. It's what we call a small parklet area. It's going to bring bicycles back that, but it's also a natural stopping point for a family or a bike rider when we look at the overall system where they can stop, take a break, have a drink of water, maybe tie a shoe, things along those lines. We get to Industrial Road. This is the Sterling Senior Center over here. We have a slight modification to the parking lot behind the Senior Center, same amount of parking. So we want to improve the sight lines as best we can. We want to make that adjustment so we've got good sight lines. We want to install a crosswalk, and we want to, we want to make sure we've got that access control, those bollard systems set up properly. Babcock Road. It's a small place to park off of Babcock Road, and there's an access point there. We're going to improve that to make that access point more defined and more accessible. We're also going to have our second opportunity area for some benches right near the Providence Road Bridge. It's a big open area. It's very sandy in that area. You can see the wide open swath we have in here. It makes sense to have that. Again, it's a good stopping point. We look at those areas in intervals for travel, both for adults, children alike. The pedestrian bridge over Providence Hill Road, we just talked about it. Fairly new structure. We're not doing a lot to it. We're keeping the single bollard in front of it. We're going to put new approach fencing, kind of open it up a little bit. It's a little tight right in here with these guide rails that are existing. We're going to pull that back a little bit, make it a little more inviting once you transition over. One thing you'll notice on this is you see a lot of lines over here, but over here you don't. This is where we transition to another bituminous area. In that bituminous area, we'll clean it up, we'll clear it out, we'll freshen up any cracks, cover up any graffiti. Spring Lake Road and Railroad Avenue. This is where we're proposing a parking lot. It will be a gravel lot. We will replace the system of bollards, install the crosswalks. We want to improve the sight lines. If you see this picture, this is a survey transit or a survey instrument. I'm not sure exactly what it is. I shouldn't speak for surveyors. It's not one. I don't play one on television. But back here is the trail. It needs to be cleaned out, the vegetation, the sight lines have to be pulled back. Railroad Avenue is on the DEP right-of-way. We would install a 9+ parking area for a gravel lot that can access the trail from this location. We come to Route 14A. Again, I'm going to speak to this. We do a hiccup or a curve. We want to improve that sightline visibility for both pedestrians, bicyclists, and the automobiles come traveling on 14A, Plainfield Pike. We'll be replacing again the bollard system. We'll be installing a crosswalk, the regulatory signs along the road. And I think I should touch on that one thing. Those signs are going to be right at the crosswalk, but then there's going to be what they call preemptive. There's going to be signs further down the road. Same thing on the trip. You're biking along, you might see a sign, hey, road up ahead, you might want to slow down a little bit. And you'll come up to that roadway signage. Now from 14A, you get out into Rhode Island. I'm showing this picture for a couple of reasons. Everyone wants to know, where's Rhode Island? Right about here, okay? And there's some fallen trees. It's coming, and it's coming fast from Rhode Island. They're in design, they're in construction of multiple projects. Connecticut, Rhode Island, New York, all the states in New England, they're making a push for this. This is multimodal transportation at its best. And it's not something of if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. We have environmental considerations. Shocking. That's fine though. We accept that. We have a lot of hoops that we have to jump through. We have some permits that we have to gain, both state and federal. It's organisms, it's water, it's wetlands, things like that. Nothing new to a project like this. If we're going to put people back into nature, we have to be cognizant and good stewards to the natural environment when we build through it. With that, I'm going to turn it over for a couple of slides to the Division of Rights of Way. Dennis McDonald with the State Department of Transportation Right-of-Way Division is here to go through some right-of-way.
Good evening. My name is Dennis McDonald, and I am a representative from the Connecticut Department of Transportation, Division of Rights of Way. I'm just going to briefly discuss the right-of-way process and what some of you can expect moving forward. Essentially, the function of the Division of Rights of Way is to acquire all property and property rights necessary for the project. This is done in accordance with Connecticut General Statute 13A-73, 13A-98E, and the Uniform Relocation Assistance and Real Property Acquisition Policies Act 1970 as amended. Right now, as you heard, we're 30% design. Some of the property impacts that we anticipate are partial acquisitions, easements, construction easements, and various rights. These are subject to change as the design progresses, but it kind of gives you a general idea of what we're looking at. So, what is the right-of-way process? Essentially, once the property impacts are determined, each impacted property owner will receive a letter of intent to acquire, as well as a property acquisition map. The letter essentially provides a brief description of the right-of-way process, and the map will provide a detailed breakdown of the specific property impacts. The letter is essentially the initiation of the right-of-way process. Soon after that letter is received, the evaluation process will occur. If an appraisal is warranted, the appraiser will reach out to the property owner to arrange a meeting to do an on-site inspection. Once a valuation is determined, an offer of compensation will be made. It will be a written offer of compensation in the form of a letter, and it will provide a detailed breakdown of the specific property impacts and the dollar value associated with each impact. Each property owner will be given time to consider the offer and negotiate if they wish. If an agreement is reached, an acceptance document will be signed, and a formal closing will take place approximately 30 to 90 days later. If an agreement cannot be reached for whatever reason, the state will utilize the power of eminent domain and acquire through the condemnation process. And I understand this has a negative connotation, but many times this really is done to keep a project on schedule. If the state does pursue eminent domain, the original offer amount will be deposited in the court system, available for withdrawal at any time. Negotiations can continue, and property owners are also given the right to file a formal appeal for reassessment of damages through the court system. That's basically the right-of-way process in a nutshell. I have some question and answer brochures. If anyone would like one, I can hand them out at the end of the presentation. I'll turn it back over to Dominick.
Thank you, Dennis. With that, we'll go with how it meets the road, so to speak. The project cost and schedule. Estimated construction cost right now is $2.6 million. That excludes the utilities and rights of way. Again, I cannot stress enough, we are at 30% right now. We're not even halfway there. That fluctuates, probably going to be right around that. But we're at 30% for a reason. We're coming to you, we want to know, we want to understand, we want to listen. We want to know what you want in, what you want out. It's 100% state funded. Gap closure project, 100% state funded. The Department of Transportation is committed to these trails. You see them all over the state. You guys started it here. It's coming back here to be rehabbed. I think of it as, it's a little worn. We're going to just knock the rust off, polish it up, and make it shine. The anticipated construction start date is spring 2021. A lot of that comes from the permitting process that we're going through. And the completion will be the summer of 2020. With that, I'm going to bring up the full picture again. And thank you everybody for coming out here on this rainy night. The amount of people showing up tonight speaks volumes that you're passionate about your town or towns. For or against doesn't matter. It's a good process when we have this many people come out and want to know information about a project that's going on. I think we can open it up to discussion and questions. They put it out there. I mean, you're going to speak into it, but I think it's on.
Check one. Yeah. Check 1, 2.
I don't need the microphone anyway. I don't know as far as like Plainfield end, but on the Sterling end, the trail is just a magnet for dirt bikes, ATVs, and the destruction that comes with it. Is the bollards and whatever you're putting up, even the existing gates that are there now, they just bypass them, even if they have to go a half a mile down the road. What's going to prevent it? I'm all for this, but what's going to prevent them from getting on and just destroying, $2.6 million worth of work?
The big part of that, and I'll answer it, is you're not going to prevent them from going on. But what they're doing right now is they're doing more environmental damage than what would be done if we put them onto the trail. A lot of that's going to be the fact that when the Trestle Trail in Rhode Island comes online, and it's already started online, and when other pieces of this, when this piece comes online and you have more ridership on the trail, you'll see a decrease in that ridership on motorbikes. One of the things that you'll notice is we're doing a different base. So they won't be able to tear it up as badly as you might think. And we're providing a very stiff, rigid base in a lot of those areas. Can you prevent them from going on all the time? We heard some discussion earlier, they're coming in from Rhode Island, they're coming in from places in Sterling, Plainfield, I don't know. I'm not gonna have the hearsay, but the bollard system has to be accessible in order to get the ridership for pedestrian, the young adults, the children, the elderly out there. And then they do become self-policing. I know you don't believe it, but we see it on the airline trail, we see it on Farmington Trail, you've seen it in other areas, in other states. We've got a lot of people, advocates here tonight for bike trails, and after the meeting, we can take you aside and discuss it. We want to hear your comments. If there's specifics that you know, write it down, put the comments in the box. Hugh's got his email out there. We're here to get that information, go back and work with the DOT and DEP and any other, any other areas or expertise, the towns, to work with that. That's kind of do you have a follow-up to that?
Well, no, I mean, just, saying, like my wife was saying, it's like, yeah, during the day, but I just know from experience where I live out in Sterling, the ATVs is 24 hours a day. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. It's,
7 days.
7 days a week,
Stuff.
and unfortunately, the DEP just doesn't have the resources to handle it,
And you're going to make it even bigger, wider,
and quicker.
quicker for them to escape with our belongings. A lot of crime.
Burden of maintenance on the trail, once you're finished the project, which is a beautiful project, no question. I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah.
But, is that fault of the state? Is that fault of the towns? Who is the fault? Because maintenance is just one of those things you cannot avoid. 5 years from when it's finished, maybe before, I'm not talking about the condition of the actual trail, I'm talking about the vegetation, that stuff grows back in. So in general, who would be responsible for the maintenance of this trail going down the road?
You'll correct me over here, but the maintenance will be by the Connecticut Department of Environmental Protection.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, we've had a variety of discussions on this. I'm Hugh Hayward from the DOT, and as Dominick had mentioned, this is part of why we have this meeting, is to hear your thoughts. And some of those conversations have been that DEP owns the underlying property, and once this is improved, they've agreed to maintain it. Now, that doesn't mean that, like other parts of the state, sometimes when you have a heavily used trail, you'll get a volunteer group that'll work out an agreement with DEP, and they'll come in and help maintain it because they care about it, because they're the users of it. And we have that in Farmington, we have that in Burlington, and certainly that could happen here. And what we found across the state as we build these and we start to piece them together, the usage just increases, so people become more passionate and more caring about it. And to that prior question about the ATVs and the bikes, we've had input from DEP on the airline trail, where when we've come in and improved that, it has substantially subsided, just because you have more people using it. We hope that happens.
That's
And
That's
yeah,
beautiful.
the airline's a beautiful
That's a
trail.
gorgeous trail.
Yeah.
Beautiful, well-maintained.
And that's what we're trying to do here. And when it's a gorgeous, beautiful trail, you get a lot of users, right? And it discourages ATV and dirt bike use. And especially when you start talking about connecting it to state line, now you've got interstate users, so it's even more of a passion, if you will.
I use the Rhode Island one a lot from the Connecticut line, going over Rhode Island, and he had brought up maintenance. So, and I know it's always a budget issue, but I use it, like I said, in Rhode Island, they have a lot of potholes that have created over the years that haven't been fixed in a few years. So I worry about the maintenance portion of it too, and that's one of the, we want to comment, that's the biggest thing is after, I know vegetation is one thing, but like frost heaves,
Yep.
what are you gonna do the next year? Who's taking care of that? Potholes just occur. Is that gonna be taken care of?
Well, and that's why, if you go back in history, when this was kind of roughed out with the National Guard, that was kind of a low-budget operation, and they did the best they could. This is more where we're providing a good, strong base, we're creating swales, and we're handling water, so it should stay in that condition for a long period of time, right? Water is one of our worst enemies. If we handle that and keep it away from the trail's gonna stay in much better shape for a much longer period of time.
Yeah, I didn't elaborate a lot on that, I probably should have. We're gonna build up that base, if you think of a layer, a cake with layers. We're gonna take it down a little ways, we're gonna bring in a sub-base, compact that down, then we're gonna bring our trail surface and compact that down. We're gonna do the same thing in some areas with blacktop or asphalt. So there's gonna be a lot more compaction. the pitching, like, they didn't do a lot of draining the water to the sides of the trail. We're gonna have that where it drains to one side or the other and it runs areas. There's areas that are just kettle. And yeah, they occur over time, they occur on the airline trail, you have to go there, regrade it, and stay on top of it, it's a lot easier. But that's what the vision is.
Thank you.
Is there a better way to police it? So you see a lot of people, selling illegal substances on the trail as well. I mean, is there going to be a better DEP response time? If you figure you're going to call, they say, oh, you call, well, nothing really ever happens. They're putting all this money into it, making it supposedly nice, safe, family, deep trail. Is there a better way to police that? Is that
As I think you and I had talked informally prior to the formal portion of the meeting, and one of the things we've seen in other parts of the state, and granted, we understand that Plainfield and Sterling probably don't have the most resources, but in other towns where we have trails of statewide significance, they actually send police out on bikes on the weekends, and they'll ride the trail, and because the town cares about it. Now, I understand that's a resource, that's a monetary issue, that's certainly something that we talk about at the local level, but that's why we're also here, is to kind of hear what's going on today, so we can kind of go back and talk about that with the municipality.
We live in an interesting time.
times that, we have down my section, I live right across the street from it, I can see it from my house. It's DEP's property, so the state police won't touch it, so we call DEP, and then, okay, they have one person, they can get there in 40 minutes, but, okay, 40 minutes doesn't do anything.
2 hours. We get people coming in from Cromwell. It takes them 2.5, 3 hours, 4 hours to come out. DEP. And by then, it's too late. It's.
Once again, that's why we're here, right? We need to hear this.
Is it
So we're trying to come up with
possible for
solutions.
DEP to have an agreement with the state police in Danielson? I mean, Danielson's obviously closer than a lot of those areas, we just have to say, but.
Certainly, we can talk about those things.
That's why we're here tonight, so listen to, like, sometimes suggestions come out of these meetings, and we can go back and we can, write that down, talk about it, and see. It's obviously, it's an issue.
Hi, my name's Wally Swinger, I'm chairman of the Plainfield Conservation Commission. And this has been my dream, I think, for many years to connect all these trails in this area. And I'm thrilled that this is happening. I know there's going to be problems. A project like this, there's all kinds of factors you have to consider. But overall, I've been on many bike trails myself. The Airline Trail, the one that goes all the way to Kulpa Park in Rhode Island. It's beautiful, and you're going through all these towns, and it seems like it's, yes, you're going to discourage the problems that were brought up as far as the ATVs. That is definitely going to happen. I've never really even seen problems like that on these type of trails. It's always nice. It brings the business to the town. I'm all for it, and I hope we can move forward with this, and thank you very much.
Hi, I work for the Liaison Valley National Heritage Corridor, and over the past 2 years, we've been assessing the Airline State Park Trail, and you're saying how wonderful it is. They have rocks that stop the openings. Some of them are 20 inches wide, so you can't get a wheelchair, you can't get a bicycle, you can't get through there, and you're going on about how wonderful it is. It is a wonderful thing, but that's not being maintained the way it should. They put the rocks in to keep the ATVs out. The ATVs are going around the rocks and going in at a different angle. I agree that this is a great project. Sterling is very remote. ATVs are not going to stop going there. I don't care how busy it is, because you're out in the middle of nowhere. Thank you.
Are you familiar with any of the trails in Rhode Island, like Blackstone Valley, Coventry Greenway, the East Bay Bike Trail? Because I'm just wondering what this is, when this is done, how that's going to compare to some of the trails over in Rhode Island. Because I've been on some of those trails, bicycling, and those trails are fantastic.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, in terms of the amount that we have to do to the base, there's no base right now. Some of those other trails, you know, they've got ballasted bases. We know that this was a rail trail. There was a lot of disruption to this. There was a 182 kV line that was laid through here. They kind of just ripped through areas. So we have to spend a lot of money just establishing that base on this. It's gonna be more like airline. It's gonna have that feel to it. In some areas, you'll have some bituminous areas. I look at like the transitions from when you go to from asphalt, blacktop. We look hard at those transitions where we kind of transition on and off. In terms of aesthetics and views, I think you've got some really nice areas that run through this area. It should be able to compete with some of those trails. Rhode Island does a little bit differently in terms of the way they allocate their funding and how they maintain things along those lines. We have other people that can speak a lot more to those than I can in this. We can meet with you afterwards. We've got representatives from VHB that can talk a lot to the trails in Rhode Island more than I can.
Street use on this trail too.
Yeah. Questioning.
That's one choice, but
Yes.
just on this.
Yes. You mentioned that we can have a question use for the stone dust areas.
I didn't want to get up, but I just want to say I agree with the first selectman about the trail bringing people in, because I am a biker. I've been hit by a car once, so I'm much more likely to ride on a trail than otherwise. And I ride with groups, different groups, and we don't just ride socially or for exercise, but we ride for, you know, we have destinations. Where is there an ice cream shop? Where is there a pizza shop? Or just a cafe? I mean, so big groups of us do that, and we choose the trails for that reason. You know, like which one has the best accommodations along. It's not just for the riding of it or to be outside. You know, love all those things, but that part of it is a big part. And like on Rhode Island, when you see a lot of shops that are right along the trail that I don't know if they were there before, but you know, it makes they complement each other.
You're talking putting bollards in at intersections. You're not saying anything about gates. Are you also going to have gates?
No. We're making this accessible, and I'm glad you brought the comment up. You're going to have a 4-foot wide swap. We made that commitment from the beginning. Are we going to have some boulders like you talked about? Yes, but we're going to have gaps between them. Now, we may have boulders to side trails that we're trying to prevent people from accessing onto the trail. That may happen, and you won't have but a 2-foot opening, okay? But from the roadways, we're going to have 4-foot accessible openings in this.
And that's going to stop ATVs?
It may not. What's going to stop ATVs is the use of the trail.
Hi, my name's John Hankins. I'm from Mansfield. I probably ride 300, 400, 500 miles on the airline each year. And when I started about 20 years ago, it looked like the trail on the left. It was in terrible condition. And if you look at that trail, ATVs are about the only thing that can use that. So ATVs are on trails that look like that all the time. That's probably why they look like that. Look at the trail on the right. No ATV user is going to want to go down that trail with people walking on it. And I found that from the 1980s and 90s, before the trail was improved, I would see ATVs virtually every time I would ride. Today, this year, I don't believe I saw a single ATV while I was out there. Last year, I saw one. Take a picture. Stand there and take a picture. If you get an opportunity to talk to them, if you're that brave, do that. They don't want your picture taken. They don't want confrontation. It just solves it. Now, there is the possibility they're going to be out there at night. I don't know exactly what you do about that, but to your comments that the good users drive out the bad, I've seen it without any question whatsoever.
Thank you.
I agree with that. We've been riding for a while on bicycles, and I was one of those dirt bike riders 20 years ago. The nicer you make that trail, it's not, we just went from Brunswick Avenue all the way to the Moosup Valley Bridge in the valley. And we got passed by dirt bikers. They were pretty respectful to stay up to the side when they went by us, but it's fun. If you make that flat and not fun, they're gonna go somewhere else, because not only that, there's gonna be a ton of people there, and I know there's gonna be that trail off to the side and stuff like that, and they're gonna be there, but I think the nicer you make it, like the airline, it's beautiful from Pomfret all the way to, we finished in East Haddam, I think it was, East Hampton. That was a nice piece of trail. When you start it from Thompson, it's a little more rough, and that's where you see a lot of the dirt bikes off to the side, so the nicer it's made. And the trestle trail is an example. We rode from Coventry to the Cranston Police Department, and it's beautiful. It's paved. There's the bollards, like you say, they're not in the way. We see a guy every time we're up there, he's riding with lay down pedal bikes, and he has a blast. So it is gorgeous, and the trestle trail should be our example if we're gonna go here.
Questions? My question is for that, for the parking lot at the end near Spring Lake Road. Are you gonna light that at all with like a utility light or something at nighttime? Just to,
Again, we're at 30%.
is it a possibility?
Possibly.
We studied.
That's why we're here today.
Solar, use it. I'm sure there's a company that wants to give, would love to have their name on somewhere to show people as they're walking. Use solar power as much as you can on that.
Anybody else? We're going to be here for a little while. We're going to want to, have people look at the drawings, and if there's other questions. Sometimes people don't like to get up and ask a question in a big group. Definitely write down some comments on the comment pages. Doesn't have to have a name, but we've gotten some good feedback tonight, not just on this trail, but on some of the trails. Every one of the comments is being recorded tonight. No names, we just record them, so we can go back and we gain this input. This is really valuable for us. So when we can develop this further on, we can take some of these and incorporate them. And I think message heard loud and clear on a lot of comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you.